Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. My name is Chris Alamo, and I am an amateur investor. This podcast is my open source journal of everything I learn about investing and wealth management. I'm here to explore the key concepts, market dynamics, and investing strategies that will assist you on the path towards financial independence and financial literacy. My mission is to build us from amateurs to experts. All suggestions are my own, and I recommend that you should do your own research before taking any investment advice. See you in this week's episode. I hope you enjoy. Hi, everyone. How's it going? My name is Chris Alamo, and I work for Bitcoin Magazine as a multimedia producer. I'm here to talk to you today about what is money and what is Bitcoin. So starting off, what is money? So there's many different definitions for money, and there's a lot of different things that are used as money. For example, many people may recognize this. These are $20 bills. These are 20 US dollar bills. So those are used as money commonly in everyday use. But those aren't actually money by true definition. Those are actually fiat currencies. A lot of people, like I said, use them as money, and they function as a money. But these are actually just debt obligations. So Merriam-Webster's definition for money is something generally accepted as a medium of exchange, a measure of value, or a means of payment, such as an officially coined banknote or stamped metal currency. Money, another definition is money is any object that is generally accepted as a payment for goods and services and repayment of debts in a given country or socioeconomic context. So like I said, I'll take you through the history of money very quickly, and there's many different things that have been used as money in the past. So one of the earliest ones was rye stones. They were used on the Yep Islands. So it's basically this gigantic stone, and in perpetuity, what they would do is they'd break up, and it was kind of more of an oral contract for how much of the rye stone someone else used. So obviously these are very big and very heavy, and they were used as kind of like I said, an oral obligation. Whether you're trying to build their house, a portion of your rye stone would go to the builder, or if you're even just to exchange for goods and services in the town. Ultimately, it fails as money because it was poor portability. And eventually, European settlers came to the Yap Islands with limestone, like these rye stones, on the ships, and gave the people of the Yap Islands, gave them to the Yap people in order to get goods and services and things in the island, and ultimately crash their economy with these fake rye stones. Other things that have been used as money are calorie shell money. So some of these shell money was used up to as late as the 1800s. Other forms of money have been salt, cattle, glass beads were also used by the Cushman Native Americans, and European settlers were able to make these really cheap glass beads and take advantage of their land, tools, horses, etc. One of the longest forms of money, though, is gold. So gold is very popular and has lasted thousands of years. And the problem with gold, though, is that it has a force to centralize. And then a lot of times when it centralizes, it's heavy, it's not very portable. While it is very durable, verifiability is more difficult. And, kind of figuring out how many gold are in existence is very, very tough to quantify as well. So a lot of times people will leave them in vaults, and then they get currencies or fiat notes, as I said earlier, as a way to redeem gold in the future. But now fiat currencies, they are not even backed by gold. So you can't even redeem this for gold anymore. So that's part of the reason why gold failed as a money. So what are the properties of money? So durability, portability, fungibility, verifiability, divisibility, scarcity, and censorship resistant are all things, properties of money, and good monies are very good at all of these things at the same time. Going back once again through history, so we're talking about the changing content, silver content in the denarius. Daenerys is not a Game of Thrones character. It's not a faction in Game of Thrones. It's one of the oldest money histories, and it backed the Roman Empire for hundreds of years. As you can see in the start, it was almost pure silver. It was like 98% silver. And then over time, they debased it. And ultimately, at very close to 300 years, the fall of the Roman Empire was they were clipping the coins and replacing them with weaker metals and lower metals, and ultimately crashed their economy. And that's ultimately what led to their demise. The US dollar is on a very similar trajectory. So the US dollar has fallen since 1913, when the Federal Reserve was founded, and the purchasing power of $1 back in 1913 would be the equivalent of $26 in 2020 dollars. The US dollar is basically the best crack house on the crack street, is a famous saying that's said on Wall Street. It has decreased by over 96% over the last 108 years. Every fiat currency has and will fail. There's one of the longer lasting ones is the pound sterling. And that's still around today, but many, many other ones like the euro is very young in its nature, and all other fiat currencies have failed. You can look up Zimbabwe. So there is in Zimbabwe, they hyperinflated their currency and they had $100 trillion banknotes. Now they're the equivalent of about 78 US dollars. I think that's more of a memorabilia, but yeah, they hyperinflated that currency and basically it ultimately went to zero by comparison. So we're talking about hyperinflation a lot. So in Germany, back right after World War I, they were trying to repay their war reparations or their debts after losing World War I. And a lot of them were valuing them, they were having them pay back their money in gold. So the value of one gold mark in paper marks. So they were equating, a gold mark to a paper mark. And basically, the only way that they were going to be able to pay back these reparations was to print money. So you can see here in this chart, one paper mark or 100 or 1 trillion paper marks were equivalent to one gold mark. So ultimately, they hyperinflated their currency in order to pay back their debts. But ultimately, that led to the demise of the German economy and, ultimately led to very, very heinous things to happen in the years coming when World War II happened and obviously the Holocaust and everything that happened there. As you can see on this price chart, so we're talking about gold. The price of gold, while they were printing into infinitum, or they're printing a ton of money, the price change in gold in paper marks was varying a lot. So it would not be uncommon for someone to sell off their gold in order to get more paper marks. But you really don't want what paper marks or fiat currencies can buy you. You want what money can buy you. They were trying to get more dollars, but you don't want to get more dollars. You want to get more things that dollars can buy you, whether that's cars, houses, vacations, whatever it may be. Obviously, people hold monies in various forms. So obviously, I'm comparing, World War I or prior to World War I or right after World War I and the consequences of it. Well, currently, this is the M1 money supply, and this is a chart from the 1970s all the way to about present day, just into 2022, 2020. And this basically showing that they are printing more and more money ad nauseum. So they keep on printing money. And when they're doing that, they're actually devaluing the fiat currencies that people hold. The rich keep getting richer because they're able to hold assets, and those assets appreciate faster than the dollars devaluate. But if you're holding money in a checking or savings account, you are losing purchasing power. So the poor and the middle class, or the people that work for money, end up losing out because of this. And it's, people have been getting squeezed, and it's been more and more difficult to sustain a living. So this is a funny gift that I love. So this is Jerome Powell with the money printer. So Jerome Powell is the head of the chairman of the Federal Reserve. He heads up the New York Federal Reserve, which is probably the most important Federal Reserve position. There's actually 12 governor seats on the Federal Reserve, and the New York one sets the monetary policy for the US and ultimately the world, because we are the global reserve currency. So why can we do this? Because, like I said before, we have the power, the privilege of being the world reserve currency, but that has changed over the history. So looking here is a chart showing since 1995, and it shows the spending versus the revenue. So the revenue can be seen as tax receipts coming in, or the taxes they collect from the people, and they're spending in a deficit budget since about 2001. So obviously we've seen Republicans and Democrats both be in office and continue to spend more money, whether it was Bush, whether it was Obama, whether it was Donald Trump, whether it was Joe Biden. They keep spending more and more money than they are bringing in. And this is not a good thing, because when they are spending more money than they can bring in, what they do to make up the difference is they print money, and that ultimately devalues the currency, and that hurts the lower middle class. This is a chart showing all the things that the US government touches, and it makes it more difficult for citizens to purchase or buy. So you can look at hospital services, college tuition, medical care, averagely hourly wages, housing, food and beverage. Those are all things that the US government subsidizes or gets involved in. And you can see the prices are way up exponentially. Just from 1998, colleges up almost 200%. Hospital services are up to almost like 250%. Things that they don't touch, but they get cheaper over time. New cars, house furnishing, clothing, cell phones, computers, toys, TVs. TVs have fallen about 90% by comparison. So, they've gotten bigger, larger, and better, but on a cheaper scale. Some of the first TVs were tens of thousands of dollars. So now you can get them for a great TV for a few $100, if that. So pales in comparison. So this is a famous quote. So the root problem with conventional currency is all the trust that requires to make it work. The central banks must be trusted to not debase the currency, but the history of fiat currencies is full of breaches of that trust. Banks must be trusted to hold our money and transfer it electronically, but they lend it out in waves of credit bubbles with barely a fraction reserve. We have to trust them with our privacy, trust them not to let identity thieves drain our accounts, their massive overheads, costs, make micropayments impossible. And this is a quote by Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin. So what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer version of electronic cash that will allow payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution that abuses this trust of money printing, basically. So what is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is the world's first decentralized cryptocurrency and payment system launched in 2009 by the pseudonymous creator, Satoshi Nakamoto. To this day, we do not know who they are. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin in existence. Currently, there are over 19.2 million Bitcoin that have been mined already. One Bitcoin equals 100 million Satoshis, or sats for short. That's a very much like $1 equals 100 pennies. That's very much the same concept. One Satoshi is the smallest fraction that you can break up a Bitcoin that we know of right now. At the time of recording, one Bitcoin's worth about 16,000 US dollars. But at the time when it was created, it was worth nothing. People were expending energy to mine it themselves. Well, so how do you get Bitcoin? You can buy Bitcoin from an exchange such as Strike, Swan Bitcoin, Cash App. You can buy Bitcoin peer-to-peer using something like Bisq, RoboSats, Hodl Hodl, Peach Bitcoin, or buy from a friend. You can work for Bitcoin. I work at a Bitcoin company and literally can earn a portion of my salary in Bitcoin. You can mine Bitcoin. So using application-specific integrated circuits, or ASICs as they're commonly called, basically they're specialized computers that are meant for mining Bitcoin. Why Bitcoin? You use Bitcoin to protect yourself and your family from the evils that central banking and the debasement of fiat currencies. It is a more fairer money than the current fiat currencies. It helps reduce the cost of violence and war. It gives property rights to everyone around the world, and you help hold politicians in check. It doesn't matter if they're Republicans or Democrats, they will find a way to print more money. It is by all means a better money. Well, speaking of money, we were talking about the properties of money and what makes a good money. So you obviously durability, portability, fungibility, verifiability, divisibility, scarcity, censorship resistance. So we've compared Bitcoin, gold, and fiat currencies. And this is a chart, comparing portability. Bitcoin's definitely better than gold and fiat currencies, verifiable, very easy to do with just, a simple computer with an internet connection. Divisibility, it's infinitely divisible, which is awesome because it's computer programmed. So it's a great chart. And, fiat currencies were first used during the 11th century by China. But by the 20th century, fiat money really just started to dominate, and we were starting to use it ultimately a lot more. So this is a chart that I love. So this talks about, many people have called Bitcoin a Ponzi scheme. Many people have called it tulip mania, which is, making fun of when tulips in the Netherlands in the 1600s, people were getting priced as high as homes. But this chart shows that when people were calling it a Ponzi scheme or tulip mania, it crashed in price. But then you can see this blue line where Bitcoin keeps going up in price. So when they said it was tulip mania, it's crashed. None of the other things have ever really recovered by substantial amounts after they were called, the great asset bubbles that popped. And I talked about Bitcoin and only Bitcoin because I think it's the best form, the best cryptocurrency for many reasons. But here's a chart comparing the top 2,412 other cryptocurrencies. And that black dash line is Bitcoin. Keep going up. All the other ones are trending to zero by comparison against Bitcoin. So I see Bitcoin as the only truly decentralized and best cryptocurrency. All the other ones are kind of smoke and mirrors, and they're not really the way that they're painted out to be. So the dimensions of money it goes through a process of convergence. So, over time, money goes from just a store of value, then eventually to a medium of exchange, and then to a unit of account. So I see as Bitcoin right now as the store of value. We're getting towards the medium of exchange part. And then eventually it'll become a unit of account. Basically, we'll be seeing things priced in Bitcoin in the future. Maybe not into the near future, but in the distant future, potentially. And ultimately, Bitcoin will protect you against central bank digital currencies, which is one of my last slides here. So central bank digital currencies are a huge threat to people's privacy and their ability to protect themselves as well. Ultimately, central bank digital currencies are a way for governments to control you by, they don't like the way you voted. They don't like the thing that you tweeted online. They don't like the picture that you posted on Instagram. They can withdraw that money or censor that money from you. We've seen countless things happen where Russian citizens are getting their bank accounts closed because they were cut off the SWIFT system. We've seen Canadian truckers have their bank accounts closed. We've seen even Ukrainians, as they were trying to flee Kiev and the Ukraine area, or the country of Ukraine, they're having issues because there was limits to how much money they could take out of the country. So I hope you enjoyed that presentation about why we Bitcoin versus using fiat currencies or any other currency. here are some great resources that you can use. So if you like podcasts, I really recommend the Investors Podcast with Preston Pish. I mark specific episodes. His Bitcoin episodes come out Wednesdays. What Bitcoin Did podcast by Peter McCormack. Rabbit Hole Recap by Marty Bent and Matt Odell. Bitcoin Audible by Guy Swan. If you like books, The Price of Tomorrow by Jeff Booth. The Bitcoin Standard, The Bullish Case for Bitcoin, 21 Lessons. There's also great articles. What is Money Anyway by Lynn Alden, Shelling Out by Nick Szabo, Gradually Then Suddenly series by Parker Lewis, An Open Letter to Ray Dalio by Robert Breedlove, The Conclusion of the Long-Term Debt Cycle and the Rise of Bitcoin by Dylan LeClaire. And then there's many great YouTube channels to follow. Bitcoin Magazine, where I work, Simply Bitcoin, or b.tc Sessions has some great great videos about how to use Bitcoin. And then last, my contact information. So how you can contact me. You can email me at calemo6@gmail.com. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And I hope you really enjoyed this presentation today. Have a great one, everyone. Talk to you later. Bye.